The Silent Fleet. The starship Hawking's Dream drifted silently through the void beyond Neptune's orbit, its sensors sweeping the darkness for any sign of the anomalies that had brought them to this remote corner of the solar system. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the distant stars while her crew worked diligently at their stations. "Contact," Lieutenant Rodriguez called out, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. Multiple signatures, massive ones. They're bigger than anything we've ever encountered. Chen turned from the window, her expression neutral despite the excitement building in her chest. After 6 months of following strange gravitational readings, they'd finally found something. "Show me." The main display flickered to life, and the bridge crew fell silent. Floating in the void before them was a graveyard of starships, each one larger than any vessel humanity had ever constructed. Dozens of them, their hulls dark and lifeless, arranged in perfect geometric patterns that couldn't possibly be natural. "Are we getting any power readings?" Chen asked, already moving to the sensor station. "Minimal, Captain," Rodriguez replied, his fingers dancing across his console. "But the hulls, they're perfectly preserved. No micrometeorite damage, no radiation decay. These ships could have been here for thousands of years, maybe longer." Chen nodded slowly, studying the readings herself. The preservation was impossible by any standard they understood. Even their best shielding technology couldn't prevent the slow decay of space exposure. Whatever race had built these ships, they were far beyond humanity's current capabilities. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Patil interrupted, her voice tense. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from the Galactic Council." That got Chen's attention. The Council rarely contacted human vessels directly, preferring to work through Earth's diplomatic channels. "Put it through." A holographic figure materialized on the bridge. Ambassador Corell, the mantis-like representative of the Council's inner circle. Its crystalline eyes flickered with what Chen had learned to recognize as concern. "Captain Chen," the ambassador's translator rendered its clicks and chirps into smooth English, "you must withdraw from that sector immediately. Those vessels are forbidden." "They are cursed." Chen raised an eyebrow. In the 5 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, she'd never heard a council member use such superstitious language. "Cursed, Ambassador. Can you be more specific about the nature of the threat?" "Those are the ships of the archivists." Corell's mandibles clattered anxiously. They were collectors, preservers of technology. They judged civilizations, determined which were worthy of remembrance and which should be forgotten. Their methods were absolute. And these ships? Their museum, their trophy room. Each vessel represents a civilization they deemed unworthy of continued existence. They preserved the technology, but erased all trace of the beings who created it. The ambassador's translator couldn't quite capture the tremor in its natural voice. "The archivists vanished months ago, but their ships remain untouchable. Every species knows to avoid them." Chen shared a look with her executive officer, Commander Jackson. They both recognized the familiar pattern, the Council's tendency to avoid anything they didn't understand, to label as forbidden anything that challenged their comfortable assumptions about the universe. "Thank you for the warning, Ambassador," Chen replied carefully. "We'll take appropriate precautions." The hologram flickered out before Corell could respond. Chen turned to her crew, seeing in their faces the same determination she felt. Humanity hadn't reached the stars by avoiding the unknown. "Begin scanning procedures," she ordered. "I want to know everything about these ships. Power signatures, material composition, any sign of active systems, and get me a secure channel to Earth Command. They're going to want to hear about this." For the next several hours, the Hawking's Dream moved carefully through the silent fleet, building a comprehensive map of the graveyard. Each scan revealed new impossibilities. Metals that shouldn't exist, energy patterns that defied known physics, and preservation systems that seemed to bend time itself. "Captain," Jackson said quietly, joining her at the observation window. Earth Command has responded. They're sending a research fleet, and they're calling this Operation Phoenix. Chen smiled slightly. Of course they were. In all of human mythology, no symbol was more powerful than the phoenix, the bird that rose from its own ashes, transformed and renewed. These ships had been abandoned, their creators forgotten, their purpose twisted into something dark. But humans had never been good at leaving things abandoned. "Well then," she said, watching as her crew prepared for the arrival of the research vessels, "let's wake the dead." In the depths of space, the silent fleet waited, its secrets preserved for millennia. The archivists had meant these ships to be monuments to failure, to civilizations deemed unworthy of existence. They never considered that they might instead become tools of resurrection in the hands of a species that refused to accept any limitation, any barrier, any law that stood between them and the stars. The Hawking's dream continued its vigil, lights burning bright against the darkness, while humanity prepared to do what it had always done best: take the discarded, the forbidden, the impossible, and forge it into something new. The silent fleet wouldn't be silent much longer. Salvage and secrets. 6 months into Operation Phoenix, the once silent fleet had transformed into humanity's largest research facility. Hundreds of ships and thousands of personnel now surrounded the ancient vessels, their work lights and research platforms creating a new constellation in the void beyond Neptune. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the cavernous engine room of what they'd designated Artifact 1, her tablet displaying an endless stream of data from the sensors embedded in her environment suit. Around her, dozens of engineers and scientists worked in teams, their powered exoskeletons allowing them to move massive components with precision. "The energy matrix is unlike anything we theorize," she spoke into her suit's recorder. "It's not antimatter, fusion, or any other known power source. It's as if they found a way to harness the quantum fabric of space itself." Dr. Patel, one of her assistants, James Chen, called out from across the chamber. "We found something in the primary control interface. You need to see this." Maya made her way through the forest of suspended equipment and floating work platforms. James stood before a wall that seemed to ripple like liquid metal, his sensors pointed at a section that had begun to respond to their presence. "It started about 10 minutes ago," he explained, excitement clear in his voice. "After we decoded that last set of command protocols. The system, it's trying to communicate." The wall's surface suddenly crystallized into a grid of symbols, each one shifting and changing as if alive. Maya recognized fragments of mathematical sequences, universal constants, and what appeared to be star charts. "It's a test," she breathed, understanding dawning. The archivists didn't just preserve technology. They created challenges. They wanted to ensure that only species of sufficient advancement could access their archives. As if in response to her words, the symbols rearranged themselves into a new pattern. A three-dimensional star map materialized in the air before them, showing the positions of celestial bodies from thousands of years ago. "Look at the timing," James pointed out. "These stellar positions, they're from exactly when these ships were abandoned. They're showing us their history." Maya's tablet chimed with an incoming priority communication. "Dr. Patel," Captain Chen's voice came through clearly. "We're picking up unusual energy signatures from multiple vessels. Whatever you've activated, it's spreading through the fleet." "Captain, I think we found their library," Maya replied, watching as more symbols and images appeared around them. "But it's not just technical data. They left records, histories of the civilizations they preserved." The word felt bitter in her mouth. The more they discovered about the archivists, the clearer it became that preservation had been their euphemism for something far darker. "The other ships are powering up their archives as well," Chen reported. "We're seeing similar activations across the fleet. Whatever security measures they had in place, we've passed them." Maya moved closer to the display, studying the stream of information now pouring forth. They were so advanced, but so limited in their thinking. They saw these civilizations as specimens to be cataloged and filed away. They took their ships, their technology, their knowledge, but discarded the very beings who created them. Like pressing flowers, James added quietly, preserving the form, but killing the living thing. The next few hours were a blur of discovery and documentation. Each activated archive revealed new pieces of the puzzle, star charts, technical specifications, and historical records of dozens of civilizations. The archivists had been meticulous in their documentation, recording everything they deemed worthy of preservation while erasing all trace of the species they had judged. But they had made one critical mistake. In their arrogance, they had assumed that any civilization advanced enough to access their archives would share their philosophy. That knowledge and technology were more valuable than the beings who created them. They hadn't counted on humans. Dr. Patel, Captain Chen's voice came through again, several hours later. The Council has picked up the energy signatures. They're demanding we cease all research immediately. They're saying we don't understand the forces we're dealing with. Maya looked around at her team, saw the determination in their faces behind their suit visors. Humanity had never been good at stopping just because someone said they should. Tell them we understand perfectly, she replied. We understand that someone took it upon themselves to judge which civilizations deserve to exist. We understand that they preserve machines while destroying their makers, and we understand exactly what we're going to do about it. She turned back to the living wall of data, where the histories of lost civilizations continued to unspool. The archivists thought they were creating a museum of the unworthy. Instead, they gave us everything we need to restore what they tried to destroy. How? James asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. They were so careful to document everything, Maya explained, a fierce smile forming behind her visor. Every technology, every cultural artifact, every piece of history they deemed worth preserving. They thought they were creating an archive. What they actually created was a resurrection manual. Throughout the fleet, more systems were awakening, responding to human presence and human determination. The archivists had built their repository to last for eternity, protecting it with tests and barriers to ensure only the worthy could access its secrets. They never imagined that worthiness would be measured not by technological advancement alone, but by the determination to right an ancient wrong. While other species saw these ships as cursed remnants of a dark past, humanity saw them as they truly were, a chance to bring justice to the galaxy. The archives continued to bloom with light and information, responding to the presence of beings who finally understood their true purpose. Not as a mausoleum of the condemned, but as seeds of revival, waiting for someone with the courage and conviction to help them grow again. In the depths of space, humanity had found its greatest challenge and its greatest opportunity. The archivists had preserved the past. Humanity would use it to reshape the future. The warning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council resembled a panicked hive more than a diplomatic gathering. Representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations crowded the massive chamber, their voices blending into a cacophony of worried chirps, rumbles, and electronic pulses. Earth's ambassador, Diana Williams, stood calmly at the center of the storm, her silver hair and dark skin contrasting sharply with the various alien hues surrounding her. You don't understand what you're awakening, High Counselor Vex Thor boomed, his crystalline form pulsing with agitated red light. The archivists were not merely collectors or preservers. They were judges, executioners, and they never truly left. Diana maintained her composure, decades of diplomatic experience evident in her steady gaze. We understand perfectly well what the archivists were. What we don't understand is why every species in the galaxy has chosen to leave their victims forgotten. Because they sleep. The Mrith representative's translator barely kept up with her rapid clicking. The great ships, the preserved technologies, they are not just artifacts. They are anchors, tethering the archivists to their hibernation dimension. By reactivating these systems, you risk drawing their consciousness back to our reality. Holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing real-time footage from the fleet. Human research vessels swarmed around the ancient ships like busy insects, their work lights creating a web of illumination against the void. More importantly, they showed the growing signs of activation, pulses of strange energy rippling through the geometric patterns of the fleet. The signs are clear, Vex Thor continued, his crystalline form now a deep purple of concern. The energy signatures match ancient records. The archivists are stirring. You have months, perhaps only weeks, before they fully awaken. Diana stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chamber's chaos. Then we have weeks to prepare, to show them that their judgments were wrong, that the civilizations they deemed unworthy had value they failed to see. You would challenge beings who had the power to erase entire species from existence. The Mrith representative's mandibles clattered in disbelief. No, Diana replied, a slight smile forming. We intend to educate them. Back at the fleet, Operation Phoenix had entered its most crucial phase. Dr. Maya Patel stood in what they now knew was the central archive chamber of the flagship, surrounded by hovering displays showing the combined knowledge of dozens of forgotten civilizations. They were so focused on preservation, she explained to Captain Chen, who had joined her for this breakthrough, that they failed to see the potential for growth. Each of these civilizations had unique approaches to science, art, philosophy. The archivists cataloged them separately, but we're finding ways to combine them, to create something entirely new. Chen watched as Maya's team demonstrated their latest achievement. Using principles from 3 different preserved technologies, they had created a power system that exceeded anything humanity, or even the archivists, had achieved. We're not just restoring these ships, Chen realized. We're evolving them. Exactly. Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. The archivists saw these civilizations as finished products, to be judged worthy or unworthy. They never considered that combination and collaboration could create something greater than the sum of its parts. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden alert. Throughout the fleet, sensors were detecting massive energy fluctuations. The geometric patterns between the ships began to pulse with light, forming connections they hadn't seen before. It's starting, Maya whispered, both dread and anticipation in her voice. The anchors are activating. They're coming back. Emergency broadcasts began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council was evacuating systems near known archivist sites. Species were retreating to their homeworlds, preparing for the return of beings they had feared for millennia. But humanity stood its ground. In orbit around Earth, defensive fleets gathered, not to fight, but to protect the work being done at the ancient fleet. In laboratories and universities across the planet, scientists worked frantically to understand and improve upon the preserved technologies. And in the fleet itself, Maya's team raced to complete their most ambitious project. They'll expect to find scavengers, she explained during an emergency briefing with Earth's leadership. Primitive beings trying to steal technology we don't understand. Instead, they'll find their precious archives not just reactivated, but improved. Their preserved technologies not just restored, but evolved. And the civilizations they erased? Someone asked. Maya's expression hardened. We've decoded enough of their records to begin restoring what was lost. Not just technology, but culture, language, art. We can't bring back the people they killed, but we can ensure they're remembered, not as specimens in a cosmic museum, but as contributors to something greater. The energy pulses from the fleet grew stronger with each passing day. The archivists were returning, drawn back to reality by the reactivation of their anchors, but they would not find what they expected. Humanity had spent its brief time among the stars proving that cooperation yielded greater results than competition, that diversity brought strength, and that no single civilization had the right to judge the worth of another. Now they would prove it to beings who had appointed themselves the galaxy's curators. The archivists had built their fleet as a monument to their own superiority. Humanity would transform it into a testament to the power of collaboration, innovation, and respect for all forms of intelligence. The galaxy waited in fear for the judges to return. Humanity waited to teach them a lesson about justice. Awakening. They arrived in a tear between dimensions, their forms shifting between states of matter like liquid mercury trying to remember its shape. The archivists emerged into reality amid their preserved fleet, expecting to find their museum exactly as they had left it eons ago. Instead, they found it transformed. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Hawking's Dream, watching as beings of impossible geometry materialized throughout the fleet. Their bodies seemed to be made of living metal and crystalline thought, each one larger than the largest human vessels. But it was their voices that made the crew flinch. Not sound, but pure concepts forced directly into their minds. Violation. Anti-Urf-Urience. Judgment. The words burned like frost, ancient and cold, and certain of their own righteousness. But humanity had prepared for this moment. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth," she broadcast, her voice steady. "We claim the right of succession over this archive by right of innovation and improvement." There was a pause, a ripple of something almost like confusion through the vast forms. "Impossible. Preserved tec no olujui sacred. Unchkng adul." Dr. Maya Patel stepped forward, activating the holographic displays that surrounded the bridge. "Let us show you what impossible looks like." The displays came to life, showing the improvements humanity had made to the preserved technologies. Not just reactivation, but evolution. Combinations and innovations that the archivists, in their rigid preservation, had never imagined possible. Contamination, the archivists declared. Pollution of pure forms. "No," Maya countered, her voice strong. "Growth, evolution. The very principles that you, in your obsession with preservation, forgot." She gestured, and the next set of displays activated. They showed the new technologies humanity had created by combining principles from multiple preserved civilizations, power systems that defied traditional physics, communication methods that transcended spacetime, defenses that could withstand even the archivists' legendary weapons. "You preserved the dead letters of civilization," Chen added, "but forgot their living spirit." Each of these technologies was created by beings who dreamed, who strived, who imagined better futures. By erasing them and preserving only their works, you missed the most valuable part of their legacy, their potential for growth. The archivists' forms rippled with what might have been anger or might have been fear. Around the fleet, their energy patterns began to shift, preparing for what had always been their answer to challenge, erasure. But humanity had prepared for this too. Throughout the fleet, the improved systems they'd spent months developing came online. Not weapons. Humanity had understood that they couldn't outfight beings who had conquered galaxies. Instead, they had created something far more powerful. Proof. "Before you attempt to judge us," Maya called out, "look at what your precious preserved technologies have become in our hands." The displays shifted again, showing how humanity had not only restored the archived technologies, but merged them with Earth's own innovations. Solar sails combined with quantum field manipulators, biological computing systems enhanced with Earth's understanding of neural networks, and most importantly, the beginnings of restoration for the cultures the archivists had erased. "Irrelevant," the archivists declared, but there was something new in their thought voice, something almost like uncertainty. "Judge meant to base ed on HEV meant at time of sionentatit. Then judge us now," Chen challenged. "Judge us by what we've achieved with the legacies you left behind. Judge us by how we've honored the civilizations you erased by building upon their works rather than simply preserving them." The largest of the archivist forms moved closer to the Hawking's Dream, its presence making reality itself shiver. "Preservation, ensures purification," it stated. "Change brings chaos. Change brings growth," Maya countered. She activated the final display, a simulation showing the potential future of combined technologies and cooperative development. Perfection isn't found in stasis. It's found in the courage to evolve, to risk failure in the pursuit of something greater. The archivists' forms began to pulse with complex patterns of light and shadow. They were communicating among themselves in ways human sensors couldn't fully detect. Throughout the fleet, energy levels fluctuated wildly as the ancient beings grappled with a challenge to their fundamental beliefs. Proof, they finally demanded. Demonstrate value of CANG. Chen smiled. This was the moment they had prepared for. Dr. Patel, initiate the Phoenix Protocol. Throughout the fleet, the systems humanity had spent months developing came online simultaneously, not as separate preserved technologies, but as a single integrated network. The geometric patterns between ships blazed with new energy as centuries-old technology merged with human innovation. The fleet itself began to transform, its components shifting and realigning according to principles the archivists had never imagined. What had been a static museum was becoming something alive, something growing. And in the center of it all, Maya's team activated their masterpiece, a device that could reach into the dimension where the archivists stored their consciousness and enhance it rather than merely preserving it. Impossible, the archivists declared again, but this time the word held wonder rather than rejection. Impossible is just another word for something that hasn't been tried yet, Chen replied. You preserved the past. We're offering you a chance to help build the future. The archivists' forms rippled one final time, and for the first time in their ancient existence, they faced a choice between preservation and progress. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if beings who had appointed themselves judges could learn to become students instead. The future hung in the balance, not on the edge of a weapon, but on the cusp of an idea, that growth was better than stasis, that cooperation yielded more than preservation, and that no civilization's potential could be judged until it had been given the chance to grow beyond its origins. Humanity had taken a museum of the dead and turned it into a laboratory of the living. Now they waited to see if the self-appointed curators of galactic history could learn to embrace the chaos and beauty of evolution. Legacy rewritten. 1 year after the awakening, the fleet that had once been a museum of the condemned had become the galaxy's greatest center of innovation. Where preserved ships once floated in static patterns, a living network of vessels now pulsed with constant activity. And at its heart, something unprecedented was taking place. Humans and archivists working together. Dr. Maya Patel stood in the newly created convergence chamber, her form tiny beside the shifting mercury-like mass of the archivist they had come to know as the Seeker. Around them, holographic displays showed the progress of their latest project, the restoration of the Zentari civilization, one of the many species the archivists had once judged unworthy. Core elation found, the Seeker's thoughts rippled through the chamber. Preserved technology, contains nita ac markers. Restoration possible. Maya nodded, studying the complex patterns of DNA and quantum signatures that could, with proper development, recreate a species that had been lost for millennia. But we're not just bringing them back as they were, she said. We're giving them the chance to become what they could have been. The Seeker's form shifted in what had become recognizable as agreement. The archivist's conversion from judges to collaborators hadn't been instant or easy, but the evidence of humanity's approach had been undeniable. By combining preserved technologies rather than simply maintaining them, humans had achieved results that challenged even the archivist's ancient understanding. Commander Chen entered the chamber, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the new Joint Evolution Initiative, a phoenix rising from a geometric pattern. The council delegates have arrived, she announced. They're ready for the demonstration. The Galactic Council chamber had been relocated to the fleet itself, a symbol of how dramatically things had changed. Species that had once fled from the archivists returned now gathered eagerly to witness each new development. Today's demonstration would be the most significant yet. High Counselor Vexthor's crystalline form pulsed with anticipation as Maya and the Seeker presented their findings. You claim to have found a way not just to restore lost civilizations, but to enhance them. Preservation alone was error, the Seeker communicated, causing several council members to flinch despite their growing familiarity with archivist communication. Humans, us durator paethe. Evolution through combination. Maya activated the main display, showing the complex web of interconnected technologies and biological patterns they had developed. Every civilization the archivists encountered had unique strengths, she explained. By preserving them separately, those strengths remained static, but by allowing them to merge and grow, the display shifted, showing simulations of how restored species could be given the opportunity to develop with access to the combined knowledge of multiple civilizations, not just returning to what they had been, but emerging into what they might have become without the archivist's intervention. We're not just correcting an ancient wrong, Chen added. We're creating something entirely new. A future where preservation and progress work together rather than in opposition. Throughout the chamber, representatives of dozens of species watched in amazement as the display showed the first successful test case. A small colony of restored Zintari, not just brought back to life, but given the chance to evolve with the benefit of both their own preserved knowledge and the advancements made since their extinction. Judgment was FLA.et, the Seeker proclaimed. Worth, note EMEASURED in ACHIV and ENT, but ANPOT INTIL. Humans tell this truth. The council chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. The archivists, beings who had once commanded the galaxy through fear and judgment, were now acknowledging their own error. More than that, they were working to correct it. But where does it end? The Mrith representative asked. If we restore all the lost civilizations, enhance them with combined technologies, what becomes of the galaxy as we know it? Maya smiled. It grows, changes, evolves, just as it always should have. The demonstration continued, showing how the principles they developed could be applied not just to lost civilizations, but to existing ones. The preserved technologies, combined with human innovation and archivist knowledge, offered possibilities that no single species could have achieved alone. In the years since the awakening, humanity had transformed the galaxy's greatest tragedy into its greatest opportunity. The Archivist's Museum of the Condemned had become a crucible of creation, where the past was not just preserved but used as a foundation for the future. We named this Operation Phoenix, Chen told the assembled council, not just because we planned to bring back what was lost, but because we believed in the power of renewal. The archivists tried to preserve perfection through stasis. We chose to seek it through growth. Ni view purpose ye found, the Seeker declared. Not judges, not parisi or viers, gerd in ears, qulti vetors of POTNTIL. The council chamber filled with lights of agreement from dozens of species. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where the boundaries between past and future, between preservation and progress, had been rewritten by human determination. Outside the chamber windows, the fleet continued its endless dance, each ship now a testament not to judgment but to possibility. The archivists had built it as a museum of failures. Humanity had transformed it into an incubator of futures. And in the depths of space, the first ships carrying restored species were preparing to launch, ready to take their place in a galaxy that had learned to value potential over perfection. The Phoenix had risen, not just from its own ashes, but carrying with it the seeds of countless new beginnings. The age of judgment was over. The age of growth had begun.